Ready for a duet?
Yeah, get into it. Let's go.
No worries. So, Jarred, would you like to just give the audience a bit of your history and background and whereabouts you farm and what your business is about?
Jarred Kemp, farm about 30 k's that way between Birchip and Nully, a couple thousand hectares. Family farm setup. As far as a bit different to a few of the people we've seen today, we've always been green as long as I can remember, so hasn't been huge issues with getting things to match up or talk or learn how to do it. We started with the rectangle brown box and worked our way along. But yeah, so and while family set up, me and the old man, lost the old man cropping time last year, so that's been a big shift and change in things too, and getting more and more involved with this ops centre setup. It's become a bit relevant that it's going to be real handy with, like everyone has mentioned today, if you're putting workers on or people on your machines, it's never going to be you there doing it. So, and no one will ever do it like you want it done. Or not really, that's a rough one, but yeah, it's just a.
Well, you're particular, and you like your stuff just so. So by having an operator that's actually going to operate at that level,
I don't think anyone will ever employ someone that'll do it the way they want it done perfectly. But yeah, it's a new world now, getting people to come and run machines for you because you can't do it all yourself. So it's become a lot more relevant. And we've been heading this way for a long time, Jord. I met Jord when he was with Landmark too, and we did a bit of variable rate stuff and jobs like that, and it worked really well, but it was almost got put in the too hard basket. There was a lot involved for the sake of just getting your rear out where it needed to be. It was nearly easier to put in the spreader and go. So we've been back and forth.
Thinking on those lines, it's just those. At times, it can be put like things like that can be put in the too hard basket, and not see it through in a sense, and just.
Yeah,
you've got to be persistent. Like you've been persistent with this. It's something you've believed in it that needs to be part of your business.
It's always sounded like a good idea, and there's brilliant setup in it. But back when it was just getting going, it was probably me being half used. It's not too hard, but it's a big effort to get where you needed to be. Whereas talking years ago, we thought this was going to be 5 or 10 year or 10-year thing, and it's happened a lot faster. And things are starting to talk.
And thinking about where you've come from using Operations Centre and your openness to explore other digital tools, even to the point where I remember your dad sort of not being overly sure about putting modems in tractors, and I know Link mentioned about this the My Transfer app and using a USB to transfer data without the machine being connected. So that was your introduction to your introduction to be able to move data from a non-connected machine back to Ops Centre.
Yeah, so we've been running around with those little
I-spanned USBs.
Yep, got a couple of them and had one in each machine and running back and forwards, and that worked well. And then one goes missing, and we use one for everything else. But it was even that worked really well to get things where it needed to be. But it was still, they had to pull into a paddock and I'll be there in 15 minutes, go and settle up for him, what's got to happen. Off we go again. So that wasn't a huge issue, but just trying to streamline things and make it.
Especially when you will have a lot more casual staff coming through and needing, you're not always going to be there to set things up. You need to be able to have the remote flexibility of being wherever you need to be at any time, and then just support the staff as need fit.
Yeah, and that's come more apparent this year. And even last cropping, I think there was 4 or 5 fences that got a bit close to the air seeder and things like that. Whereas there's been a lot of talk about getting everything in place first. So we've had boundaries done, but they were on the boom and things like that. But hopped in the ute this year and rigged up a setup like this and drove every boundary of every paddock so that, in theory, it doesn't matter who you put in there. You've got an AB line and a boundary. Don't touch the screen, just go okay, and off you go. Yeah, you can pull into the paddock.
It's a good point you do actually raise there about doing boundaries in a boom, because that's something that pops up time and time again, and just the level of accuracy to be able to judge the fence line when it's 18 metres or 16 metres or however far away it is from the cab, that view. Even doing it in the ute, like you're still, while you got a small error, you're still not as easy as what you think it is.
No, and I thought I did a good job, and we're still one fence down, so that's on me. But yeah, so just things like that. Because when we first did boundaries, the only really thing that had done every paddock and went around the edge was the boom. So we ran everything off that for years when we first started with all this job, and just got to the stage now where if you're going to have something turn itself around corners or going around a tree, it's got to be pretty accurate and pretty close. So start again now, do it properly, new AB lines, new boundaries, and from this year on it can roll ahead.
That's your foundation.
Yeah, that's my second foundation, yeah. So second go at it.
If it's not quite right, we'll just reset it again.
The barn paddock.
Yep. So there's always, if it's not quite right, then you're just continually improving. That's probably that's one message I'm taking away from you.
It is, yeah, and we're sort of doing things different to Link and a few others. It hasn't been as focused on. Well, the mapping is good and the boom is really good. That's my spray records now. So when we used to have to write in a book and you'd do 2 weeks of spraying and then realise you've been nowhere near your book and things like that, at least this is keeping real-time data of what you're doing. So that's one less headache. But yeah, keeping things moving a little bit at a time. And I've got some modems sitting in Sea Lake now, so that's the next step again to get things, to throw my little USB out to make one less job to do and try and make it more streamlined.
And taking that step, because you'd been 2630s for right up till last year, you've been running 2630s?
Yeah, Harvest was my first Gen 4 experience, and it worked pretty well once we figured out how to use it. But it's actually a good setup, yeah. So
and by having that Gen 4, that enabled you to use Work Planner, and we sat there at Sea Lake before Harvest, made sure that everything was in order, so that when you rolled into that paddock, it's just go time. Yeah,
and the header was the only machine on the farm with a modem, so it just made sense to start there and see how it worked. And we sat down and did the housekeeping before Harvest, and things were where they should have been, and roll in and up on the screen, you're in the barn paddock, it's favour beans, here's your boundary, here's your thing. Is that what you're doing? Okay. And yeah. And there was a few, I think I pushed okay to the same paddock 2 days in a row, so there's a few different yield maps and stuff for the start of it, but they all just jumped on top.
It just merged together once it got to op centre, and
after a phone call you worked it out, and nothing to panic about.
Crisis averted.
Yeah.
So, looking at Harvest last year, where we discussed Verge Ag and Launchpad and sitting there. So, when talking about Verge, Launchpad, that's a platform that is used for paddock path planning. So we can take those field boundaries, run them through Verge, and in 30 seconds we can have guidance lines for the whole farm. So we ran that for you. That didn't take long at all to get all your lines.
Once I got my boundaries, it worked really well, and because we'd had a GPS line for a sprayer, GPS line, I don't know why, but I had a GPS line saved for every machine. That's why things got a bit messy too, but that was just
coming back again.
Tidying up.
Just tidy it up and simplify.
So things got overcomplicated, so we've done this boundary and the Verge job, start again. And even it was interesting, New Cedar was our first go at it last cropping, and it was a 56-foot conserva pack. Had all set up and out in the paddock, and for the life of me couldn't make it hit the spot again coming back, and ran a tape measure over it and looked a bit harder and had 2 extra tines on the end of it. So should have done a bit more counting, but yeah, things like that. But then sat down and crunched it into the thing to figure
Well-
out if we take the tines off, it would be easier. But it
Well,
made a big
just off,
difference.
just off the back of that, by running those figures and that discussion we did have, and you did ask him, do we drop those 2 tines off, and you're going to lose 3% productivity by dropping those tines.
It's something simple as 2
Yeah,
tines swinging
yeah.
off the end. It made a big difference at the end of whatever paddock we're mucking around with. So over cropping, it would have made a big difference for the sake of 2 tines. So.
I think your comment was thinking about welding and adding another 2
Well,
tines.
yeah,
like
and I have stared at it a few times, but it's going to be hard work, so it's all do. But.
Yeah. So another thing too, think about harvest. Like you had quite a few lentils in your program last year. Being able to actually set up your angles to be able to harvest without having to pull in the paddock and then set A, set B, and do an angle line. At least you could actually view it on an iPad or view it on the screen how your machine's going to work across the paddock.
Yeah, we had a 30-degree off our AB line in the header sent from that Burjag day.
Yep.
Ready to go. So same thing, pulled in. This is lentils, jumbo 2s. Yep. What AB line you want? 30 degrees one, and off we went. So that.
Is that one less thing that you're sitting there and thinking, oh, now I've got to set it. Now I've got to go and set an AB line, and
And none of the stuff I'm talking about is a huge issue. Like it's not going to stop you at the end of the day, but it's just making things flow on easier. And
it's a frustration. Like harvest time, you just want to get push that hydro handle forward and just get into it. So any little niggle that you get is frustrating from an operator's point of view, let alone a farm manager or farm owner's point of view when you've got a machine sitting there in the corner of the paddock not working and you're trying to work out why it isn't.
Yeah, just trying to get things working. So when you open the gate, put the front on, off you go. Everything's there. You need it. You don't have to think too much, I suppose. And that way, it doesn't matter who's on it. Like I've driven the header forever, and it just seems to work that way. But now it's almost straightforward enough. Anyone else can hop in there and drive it. I did a pass run to Horsham, had my uncle on the header, and I still remember grabbing my phone out. I was starting to panic. I was taking a while, and he might be finished a paddock, and he can't unhook the front or anything. But get your phone out. He's only halfway across, so you know.
You've got time.
Yeah, you're driving over 100, not 130. You don't have to do your ticket.
Yep. That's a good point.
Yeah.
So, what sort of plans are you looking for? Like where you are now, what are some of the things that you see as your next steps, Jarred, like for the future?
Yeah, well, from here, I suppose we'll get those modems in the machines, and that takes one step out, and then it's less tidying up to do before harvest, before cropping, because things happen in real time off the tractor, off the header, off the roller, off the sprayer.
It's not having to go put a USB in a computer, download it.
Yeah, and if
all those things, like the amount of times that, and probably is somewhat a barrier to adoption or utilisation is just that time spent in front of the computer.
Yeah, and I have found out if you wait too long with the USB thing, it does have hissy fits uploaded.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
you're trying to get way too much stuff up to the cloud.
Too much data.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I found the more you do it, the easier and more straightforward it is.
Yep.
But then to sit, if it is all on the thing, and I sat down before cropping this year on Work Centre and done up a plan for each paddock, what we're sowing, rate, boundaries, AB, so it was all in the screen, ready to go again.
And
so it doesn't take that long.
And the good thing is just working over time. It's you've picked up and gained the knowledge and the skills to be able to do this. It's not necessarily a call to me. It's you've got the ability to do that for yourself. You set it up. That just keeps rolling. Your knowledge and skills just keep evolving, and you keep challenging me more and more.
Yeah, it's all in the one setup, but it's something new every year. Like you figure you master something this year, and then next year we're doing work docs and stuff like that. And getting into PCT and the Verge stuff, it's just the next. Once you figure this out, you go on to the next.
Like I think about where you are with Ag World. Well, that's probably from the farm management point of view. That's probably the one thing that you'd want to be trying to start to master. I'll say.
And with Ops Centre and Ag World starting to get along, and talk to each other like we talked about years ago that could have taken a decade. That's
Yeah.
nearly here, which is
Yep.
a ripping thing to happen.
Yep. What accounting package do you use?
Zero.
Zero. So so I'm just thinking long term. It's going right. Well, the data's in Ops Center. It goes to AgWorld through the APIs that sit there between AgWorld and Zero. Like that, the long term goal would be that your accounting package then is feeding data from the field. Or it has field data feeding back to Zero, so to speak.
And as spoken earlier, all the machines, they're paying a heap of money for all this gear, and it's all got the technology on it, so we might as well do our best to use it as efficiently or as effectively as we can to eventually get to that end goal that at the end of the day makes your life easier in your home half an hour earlier.
Spend more time with the kids and
or do another job, but spend home half an hour earlier. So,
any questions for Jarred?
Knowing what you know now, the dealer support, is it satisfactory? And what do you think dealer support would look like in, say, 2 or 3 years' time?
Dealer support's been fantastic. George,
you can be honest.
No, because you can ring you with a problem and you can talk. You've talked me through nearly any issue we've ever had, which is half the battle. Because I know my way around a screen, but there's always tick this box instead of this box, like just something simple. Most of the time, it's something simple, but it's all, as I said, pretty straightforward. We first went to auto steer was great, straight lines were good, and you drive down the paddock and look at that, and then we went 2 centimetre to go in a row sowing, and that was good. We were dealing with Darren Allen there back in the day, and he's still brilliant too. So I used to ring Darren before you appeared, and he's the same thing. It's all in his head and can talk to anything about it or get you out of any trouble. But I don't know what it's going to look like in the next few years, but the way things are going, well, you've got on my screen on the header while I was sitting in the header and you were on your computer in Horsham, I think. So that side of things where anything's fixable, and if you can't, Jord or whoever you're talking to can access it from their computer and make sense of what's going on. That's a big
So a lot more. Thing. So a lot more focus on the remote support.
Probably not focus, but the remote support will make it easier for you to do your job and for us to get out of strife without someone having to actually physically stand in the machine. That was a big benefit or bonus. So
do you feel that as just as such, you've got an agronomist, you've got a grain broker, the like. Can you see that having a digital consultant in your corner that's really working and pushing you harder to evolve is something that potentially is in the realms of your possibility?
Yeah, well, the way we're going, you have been my digital consultant. Yeah,
right.
So that's, if there wasn't someone talking about all this stuff or showing you how to do all this stuff, that wouldn't be happening. We'd still have the brown box going up and back and steering in a straight line happy.
You wouldn't have evolved. And
no, well, there's no reason to if no one's telling you about it.
Or pushing you.
Yeah, or if it was more drama that was going to be worth to do or going to cost more time or take up more time and effort than you got back out of it, it probably wouldn't happen. So,
which could be looking at even the early days of variable rate, that guys spend a lot of time on computers. They'd get out to the paddock. There's probably people in the room that have done this. That they'd have to wait for the computer to load up. They'd make a cup of coffee. They'd have to wait for the software to load up, and they'd spend a day trying to make a prescription work, and then just go sowing anyway.
Yeah. So now that we're heading towards Ops Centre, talking to the machine in the paddock, I can do it, having a stubby at night time, whatever I'm doing tomorrow, send it to the tractor and hit the key tomorrow morning, and loads up and off we go.
So it's more looking like, I'll just backtrack a bit back to work planning just on that comment that you made. So it's more just reviewing what you're going to, or planning out your day for the next day and what jobs you've got to do, and just using Ops Centre basically as a notepad to set out your planning.
Pretty much, yeah. Set up. Even for the week, we go for a drive around with Rick and righto, we're spraying.
We're doing this, we're doing
Grass
that.
spraying lentils this week, so
Yeah.
he sends the rec out. So I can sit down, punch it into my work planner, and it's
Ready to
at
rock
the
and roll.
sprayer.
Yeah.
So I've just got to put what I need in, and off we go. And that's a neater, more precise spray records and everything else. too.
Compared to pulling in from one paddock to another and going, oh, I forgot to change the tank mix or the old I've shifted from barley and I've moved into wheat.
Yeah.
And I haven't changed the variety, and then you have that first opening lap of one strip.
Then you change it, and
Then
then
you
you just
change
got
it,
a bit disappeared in your paddock
Yeah.
for the rest of the year
Yeah.
and things like that. So
Or then we're going to come back and merge it and make
so
it pretty again. Yeah.
with so much emphasis on keeping everything tidy and keeping your house in order, well, if it's going to make it easier to do that, there's less drama later on.
Yep. I'll take that. I'll take that as your final sort of message. Is just get your house in order. Sounds like Jordan B. Peterson.
Yeah, well, and I quote, but no, it does make it easier. Easier for everything to operate if it is set up the way it should.
Yeah, could you ever see a need where maybe other third-party supporters of your business, such as, say, insurance or financial, would have a seat at the table and work with this data with you?
Well, yeah, if something was happening that way, or even if it's just another way of collaborating instead of writing all your bank statements down and giving the bank manager. If he could click a button and see it all, it would make it easier.
Well, we've got the crew from Westpac here, so you can ask them sort of what listening to what they've heard today, what sort of things can they see from a lender's point of view. The data can assist in different financial products or overdrafts, or the way that farm finance or farm business finance is going to be in the future. Is the data going to become more important to you guys?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's just the way the world's going. Everything's got to be justified. The green finance is different. So if we can use this data to justify assumptions in the budget, and that makes the lending easier, because as we know, all the fractions are so different. And if you're doing this efficiently, that's going to make it a lot easier for you to borrow money.
Is that compared to writing out my budget on the back of an envelope and then handing it in?
Correct. It's going to be like that.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Now Roman Ryan.
They don't really love that anymore. The other side of it is the sustainability stuff. So we all know that that's coming, and the banks are getting on board. So part of our appraisal when we're looking at a loan, it's okay, what are these clients doing in relation to sustainability, and and there's a checklist. So those things are going to become more and more important. And if you're showing you're doing these and you're getting everything down to the paddock or the metre or whatever the case is, it's only going to be beneficial.
I'll say, hot topic with ESGs and the like there, looking at what does that look like, and again, farm records on the back of an envelope isn't going to cut it, even down to typing into a spreadsheet. Actually having that spatial data is going to become more and more important.
Absolutely. I think you guys are way ahead of the game, from what I've seen. I mean, I think it'll start, the government will bring it in, and it'll start being something that you're going to have to do to be compliant. But from a banking perspective, they're driven to make sure that their customers are taking this seriously. And how do we justify that? We do that with our assessment. So anything that makes that easier is going to be beneficial for everybody, I think. Yeah. It's a good job.
Yeah.
I'll just touch on that sustainability piece from our side as the agronomist. We've got a project on board within Nutriem at the moment. We've got a whole sustainability team, and it's about trying to drive value to those growers. And one of the big problems we have in sustainability is we don't want to just farm more sustainable and cost the grower more money and not get a return. So we're trying to find that link to close it, and we've got a project at the moment with Cargill in canola where we can grow lower carbon canola by using less N by variable rate technologies or some enhanced efficiency technologies. And in that project, we're potentially looking at a $30 a tonne premium on the canola. One of the big problems that we've got in selling it to the end user, which might be KFC in Australia wanting to have 50% of their canola oil as low carbon canola, is proving that that got done on the farm, which either can be done on invoices or can be done on direct records of what's happened in each paddock. They heaps rather those records per paddock. And the AgWorld recommendation is only that, a recommendation. So an actual, what these guys are capturing is heaps more valuable.
So actually getting fuel consumption per paddock, fuel consumption per hectare, the efficiencies that's being recorded by each pass of these machines, that's just going to, let's just say it is KFC and they do want that 50% carbon neutral, the carbon capture side of things that we can go, right, well, it's, there's the data. Makes me think of the cotton industry, like Cotton ID and the gins and where that's gone.
Yeah, David Statham in Morree's running a lot of that stuff, and in partnership as well with John Deere up there. I think from our perspective, like the return on asset is as good as it gets there. Like that nitrogen stabiliser is $60 a tonne, or at 100 kilo spread at $6. If you're getting a 2-tonne canola crop, that's you're starting to talk about a pretty good return at $30. It's a 1 to 10 return. I reckon this is our verge on getting onto it, and it's going to be hard to find the right partners because not everyone's able to do what Jarred does or what Link does to actually drive this forward. So another incentive to get this started right and really record it so that you get some trust behind you when those opportunities come out.
Yep. And from my perspective, I feel really lucky to be in the area that I'm in, like as in the Mallee, because the Malley's got some of the most progressive growers that are on the forefront utilising data technology as a part of their farm business. So compared to say someone that's elsewhere in the country that isn't taking this information as serious, at least I feel that we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah.
I feel like I've gone from a Q&A with Jarred to now I'm not bloody hot seat.
Just as a fill-up to the questions I asked Jarred, I've been privy to a few conversations lately, and there's been interest from insurance companies wanting to know what long-term data of crops are, and Jordan doesn't know, but he's invited to talk on 3rd of October to them all, to an elders conference. There's also...
I was going to say that sounds about right one. Yeah, thanks.
You're right. And there's also a lot of interest coming up from real estate as well, farm values and that, verifying farm values. So,
who's the current roving Brian sort of mic holder at the moment? Because where's Rolsey? Oh, there you go. You got the mic, or close to the mic. Just Agent Rolls is on a insurance project as well, which Chris Rickard's a part of, as well as a couple of others in the room. So on that, Lou, with the insurance, I was going to say this has turned into a really good segue of everyone getting a bit of a chance to talk.
Yeah, thanks, George.
Throw you under the bus there, mate.
Yeah, you have thrown me under the bus, but that's all right. I'm used to you now. So we are working currently using data sets, long-term averages to build indexes for insurance, to bring actually new types of insurance products to market. We're also working with some banks to look at how we can validate the green lines, and we're fairly well into that thing, and we are actually now, in the near future, there will be green-based loans based off looking at probably at least your data sets to validate what you're doing in the paddock, albeit around water use efficiency, nitrogen use efficiency, those type of things. It's definitely the way it is going to go, and you and I have had these conversations in depth, because not only is the spatial data important for the agronomy, but it's actually another business toolkit that you can use to validate. I'm also heavily involved in the NFF data code that's just come out, and we've had those conversations too. And so data is now a new commodity, and that's the real benefit to your business. It's like you wouldn't give me a ton of grain for free. So it's the same thing with your data now. So you actually got to start working with trusted partners like the Horses Boys and that, to actually start aggregating those data sets so you can actually take full advantage of them into the future. Because that's the real value. It's going to be when you have 5, 10 years worth of data to actually be able to maximise like your insurance, your finances, and also the potential to hit new markets for the greenhouse gas stuff. Just on that, do you know what methodology you guys are looking at with Cargill for greenhouse gas modelling?
It's in the same national Excel spreadsheet, and it's that basic, right? So all out of Melbourne Uni, and I guess for us as a business, it's mainly in the livestock industry where they started. This has been done for 5 years in Canada profitably, so we brought a guy over from Canada to develop it here, and really just getting those connections sorted early. But again, this is hypothetical. That $30 premium isn't there until we get everything else right. It's a hypothetical connection, and how we work that out. We've got a couple of pilot systems over in the east, and 3 or 4 growers in this district that are going to jump on board next year and see how we go.
Can I add one more thing?
Of course you can.
Thanks, Geordie. Love a soapbox.
Just don't stand on the drum because they're not load bearing.
People of my build have feelings too, Jordan. So the one thing that's really exciting about this for me is the fact that I've been in this space for way too long. But the one thing I'd taken away from it is the fact that a lot of the benefits you get agronomically is intangible. But it's from these data sets now that there will be tangible benefits that you guys can see. You know, saving points on your loans, getting access to new products. So I would just encourage everyone here today to start collating the data set they've got, because you will not be able to access them unless you have that 5 years worth of data set behind you.
That's not a paid comment either.
No, that was a statement.
Yeah, that's right. No worries. No, thanks. I was going to say it's turned into. Thanks, Kempy. Yep, I think we're good there. So, no, thanks everyone that was involved in that. That was really good.